Hello, dear. It's Heather, and you're watching Save Today with Heather J. I'm somebody who has spent her entire adult life living paycheck to paycheck and being one life event away from financial crisis. And this channel is my attempt at changing that and creating a better financial future than my financial past has been. I am somebody who has just struggled to get by and is now struggling to get ahead. I am not in any way any kind of professional financial advisor, and you're going to see me making a lot of mistakes. If you're looking for a how-to, I'm not it. But if you are somebody who is also struggling and wants a little company, wants to join me along this journey and see where we get, I invite you to come along and let's see where we go. Today's video is going to be my September week 3 spending check-in. My months, budgeting months, don't line up with the calendar months, and that's because I get paid every other Friday, and my rent is due to be auto withdrawn on the first of the month. So whatever paycheck that happens to be that has the first, that's when that month starts for me. So for me, September started the 25th of August, and which is why week 3 in September for me is the 8th to the 14th of September. That would really be considered the second week, but because that's when the first, that's how that lies out for me. So right off the bat, I have 2 stories I want to tell you about this week before we get into my spending, because some of the transactions are related to that. I have a good thing and bad thing that happened, and that's going to impact some of what my transactions are. And 2 good things that happened this week. One is just a phenomenal gift to me and has nothing to do with my budget, but I want to share it because I feel so blessed. And that is, I have I've been talking an awful lot, a little bit here in video and for sure in my real life, about the fact that at some point I want to build a business very soon on the art that I do. And those are part of the steps I'm taking kind of in the background, and part of why this budget is going to matter. I'm not going to get very far if I continue in my same patterns, right? I have been blessed to have people believe in me along the way as I have these conversations, believe in me far more than I believe in myself. I have a coworker who at one point in time was planning to have an Etsy business, and her life took a different direction, and she chose not to do that. And she got rid of a lot of the stuff. Some she sold and some she gave to other people, but she was holding on to some things that were very precious to her, and she didn't want to give them up because she didn't want to just give them away. She hadn't yet found anybody who she felt would value them enough to get rid of them, and she gave them to me. She gave me some beautiful lampwork beads, and it's so much beauty that she gave to me, and I really recharged some of my creative juices and really wanted, is really getting me very excited. And that was such an incredible blessing. Number one, to know that she had held on to these for so long because it didn't feel right to give them away, and I'm what feels right, is an incredible blessing. And I'm so grateful to have that, and I wanted to share that with anybody and everybody who wants to listen, because that's such a blessing. It's such a gift, and I feel so I don't know, my feelings are so big, I don't have the right words to express them, but I'm very excited to have that, and I want to share that great thing. The other thing is another coworker. He and I had gotten to talking about using natural plant-based products to create fabric dyes. I don't know exactly how we got onto that, except that he also is another creative, and we have had several conversations over our course of working together around various creative topics. And we got to talking about using plant dyes and spices and turmeric and blah, 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 and, to dye fabric with. And I was very excited about all of it because I have a lot of the things, and it's an immediate future thing. It's something that's going to happen for me very soon, as far as beginning that process. But I was talking to him about using walnuts. I really want to get my hands on some walnuts to create some walnut dye. And he happens to have a walnut tree in his yard, and he says they're a nuisance for him. He's constantly got to kick them away as he's trying to do his mow his lawn and stuff. So he brought me a whole bag of walnuts so that I can start this dyeing process. So those two things happened within the same week, literally back to back. You know, I saw her one day and him 2 days later, and they both had these precious gifts to give to me. So some of that will show up in some of my purchases here, and I just wanted to share that. I also have one negative thing, and that very first transaction is kind of a negative thing. I have been trying very hard to not go out to eat. I have gone what for me is a very long time of not going out to eat, and to this point it's been 4 weeks of $0 in my dining out budget. I on this Friday had gotten myself ready for work, and I was making my lunch to head out the door, and I grabbed my loaf of bread off of, you know, where we store it, and I was bringing it over to the counter to gather up, you know, and make my sandwich to take to work. And I noticed in the bottom of that bread this big like chunk taken out of about, I don't know, 6 or 8 slices of bread. And I thought, that's weird. I didn't realize it had that. I wouldn't have bought it if it was like that. And as I'm carrying it over, I'm taking a closer look at that, and I'm realizing in the cellophane there's a hole about this big. And then there's a hole in the slice of bread about that big. A mouse had gotten into my house and found my bread and eaten his way into there and ate his body out, just big enough for him to be in there eating underneath that slice of bread and have nobody know he was there. And I flipped out, obviously, as you would. I've never had mice in my house. And I'm in the second story. How do I have mice in my house? They've had to work hard to get here. And it's probably, can only imagine how gross it must be downstairs for them to have made it up here. I don't even, But I didn't have anything else that could be an alternative for my lunch that day. I didn't have any leftovers. I didn't have, you know, it was at that point, it's the last Friday. I hadn't had a chance to go out shopping yet, and so we were pretty bare bones. And I have to tell you, I was furious that I was going to have to go out to eat, to get fast food on my lunch, when I'm somebody who hates to cook, and it's very easy for me to make any excuse to need to go out and get fast food. This time I had a very legitimate excuse, and I did not want to go to fast food, which I found really ironic because that's definitely a 360 from where I was even 6 weeks ago. I did not actually go out to eat. I went to Aldi's, which is right next to where I work, and I went in and I got stuff for lunch from Aldi's. So I basically used the grocery store as my fast food. I did get a package of cookies that have lasted obviously more than the one meal, probably 5 or 6 different times of going into the cookies before the whole package was gone. And then a couple of other things that really were just gone for my lunch. But I just thought that was funny. So on the 8th in the groceries category at Aldi's, I spent $6.85. I just thought it was really funny that my first reaction about needing to go get food was to be furious that I was forced to have to go get food when I wasn't really wanting to anyway. I've just come such a long way. And so there's that. That's why I needed to tell that horrible story about that horrible mouse. On the 8th in the groceries category at Kroger, I spent $29.26. I don't really for sure remember what this was, but just a couple of little bits and bobs to get dinner on my way home. I probably got some chicken and some salad because that's something I like to have fairly frequently. And then On the 9th, in the miscellaneous category at Lowe's, I spent $27.50. This one is a direct result of those two stories I told you. I went to Lowe's and I got a 5-gallon bucket so that I could soak and ferment those walnuts and extract that dye from them. And I know there are ways I could have gotten a 5-gallon bucket to soak those in for the next 6 to 8 weeks that wasn't purchasing brand new. But I didn't want to worry about what kind of chemicals might be leaching out of, you know, whatever they had been used for before, whether that's a cat litter bucket or cleaning chemicals or paint gallons, or, you know, whatever it is that you always have free buckets for. And it was such a last minute gift that I didn't have time to plan for that and really search out where I could find, you know, maybe a food grade pickle bucket or something that would have worked and not been worried about chemicals in there. And then I did get 3 2-packs of snap traps to trap these mice, because obviously I can't have that happening in any way, shape, or form. And we did catch almost immediately 2 separate mice from the same location. That we had set these traps, and then, you know, in the middle of the afternoon, as soon as they came home from the store, they came out of the package and they got set in various different spots in the kitchen. And while my son was baking a cake and mixing his frosting, that snap trap caught one of them literally right at his feet. And then same spot overnight caught a second one. Creepy. It's so gross. And we haven't caught any more since then. So it's been about 5 days of not having caught any more. So they've caught on to the fact that those traps are there, and they're making adjustments. So we're making adjustments around that. But that's what that miscellaneous category is. And for me, the miscellaneous category very much is a catch-all for the things that I don't know to plan for, that need to be dealt with immediately. Obviously, if I had waited and planned and budgeted in buying that bucket, those walnuts would have rotted on the counter and not been usable and left a horrible mess everywhere. And obviously, I'm not waiting another 2 weeks to be able to go and buy snap traps once I know the mouse is there. Then I would be even worse. God, can you imagine? So that's what that miscellaneous category is. And so you can see with the bucket and the snap traps and that Aldi's, I felt like you needed to know the story as to why those transactions happen, because they're not just a normal, oh, I got groceries kind of situation. Then on the 9th, after I left Lowe's, I went to Joann's looking for kid-sized plastic gloves so that the grandkids could help me with the walnuts. I didn't buy anything, but I definitely spent some time looking there. And in that same parking lot as the Joann's is the Walmart grocery store, and I just went there and bought all my 2 weeks plus groceries. On the 9th in the groceries category at Walmart, I spent $287.14. And that's got me all of the I think that's got everything we're going to need for the next couple of weeks, and then as well as some carryover. I've got some meat in the freezer. I've got, you know, side dishes. I've got some lunch stuff. We have found a different location to store our bread in the meantime, and some breakfast options. So hopefully that $287.14 should carry us over without having to get much else. We'll probably need to get milk and maybe another loaf of bread. I can't imagine that those would still be around in 2 weeks. But, you know, as far as real grocery shopping goes, that's good. And then on the 10th, in the transportation category, I did go and get gasoline. I filled my tank up, spent $34.17 in gasoline on the 10th. And that was it for my transactions for this week. So not a whole lot of spending. And you'll see week 1, week 2, week 3, I don't have a lot of spending. I seem to have reeled myself back in. And gotten through the stress point. I do think that makes these check-in videos kind of quick and boring, but maybe not, because I still manage to talk way too much. The next thing, once we go over what I spent, we're going to talk about how much that totals were and how that affects my estimated budget. So in the groceries category, I had those 3 transactions. I spent $323.25. Last week I had $394.48 left over. I take away that $323.25. What I'm left with for week number 4 is $71.24 in my grocery budget, in my estimation. In the dining out category, you guys, I have $0, $0, $0. I have gone 3 weeks in September without spending anything in groceries. I also, prior to that, went 2 weeks in the last 2 weeks of August without any groceries. So I have gone 5 solid weeks without spending in dining out, which is absolutely unheard of for me. It's incredible. And up until about last night or the night before, I have had 0 interest in dining out. I am starting to, in the last 24 to 48 hours, get that little niggle in the back of my head where when I drive past fast food restaurants, I'm like, ooh, that sounds really good. When you can smell the fries and the cheeseburgers in the air, oh, it smells so good. My brain's starting to like really be focused on, that smells good, I want that. That would be so easy. So we'll see if I can really get through this last week in this month. I want so badly to have zeros all across the paper for the entire month in dining out. And so for that to happen, I would need to go this one more week. Even though I've gone 5 weeks, it wouldn't show up all in one piece of paper to look at. I really want that visual. So we'll see if I can hold myself to that this last week, and fight myself as I'm starting to get that urge. I don't know yet if I'm going to reward myself with a very nice meal out if I can make it through the 6 weeks, or reward myself with some other something that I'm wanting to have or do, or if I'm just going to call it good and not feel like I need to reward myself. The fact that I went 6 weeks is reward enough. But I want to kind of mark it somehow. This is a huge win for me. No matter where I go from today, what I've done so far is phenomenal, unheard of for me, and I celebrate that all the way. In the transportation category, I did one transaction for $34.17. I had $92.54 last week. I have $58.37 to spend next week. My transportation category, I have always, in each of my estimates, been under in that. So going forward, I'm going to start reducing the amount that I'm estimating into my transportation category. I need those funds to be estimated elsewhere. They're not needed in my dining out. They're not needed in my transportation category at the volume I've given that. So I'm aware of that now, and I'm going to make changes going forward. But for right now, I do have $58.37 in the budget for next week. My art, I didn't spend anything. I did go look and ultimately not spend anything. And that's the second time this month I've gone to look and not spent anything. And that's fine. I'm okay with the looking and not spending anything, because sometimes the looking creates another creative spark and gives something else, and sometimes the looking lets you know that you don't need it and you can get that off of your head now. So that's fine. There's $0. I picked the project I'm working on purpose, thinking there was going to be nothing, and so far there hasn't been anything. The miscellaneous category, I did spend that one transaction at Lowe's, again for the bucket and the mouse traps, for $27.50. I was already negative $71.37, so I'm now negative $101.87 negative in that category. So I spent $384.92 in my flexible spending categories this week, which means I have $27.74 left in my flexible spending categories. And that's actually pretty true to what I think I have left. So there's probably not going to be much in my flexible spending in week 4. By the time the last of my bills are paid, $28 is about what I've got left in my account. And once those bills are paid, I don't really have anywhere. Like if I spent an extra in dining out, it doesn't get to come out of one of those bills I had set aside because they're paid already, right? So I don't know how much I don't know how much is going to be going on week number 4's spending. So that might be another super small, boring video, but that is it for the week 2, week 3 spending check-in for September. I'm really excited about some of the changes I'm seeing, you know, most especially that dining out. And to be able to take some of the estimate away from my transportation is nice. It gives me, it opens up other areas. As far as my craft and my project I'm working on in the background, this hasn't changed from the last video I put out. I thought I was going to get further on, but I have spent my time after work the last 3 days really kind of looking at my student loans and where that budget lies and playing some estimates on what that would look like to pay X amount of money and how much extra, you know, the interest is. And so I've spent hours going over all of those budgets and kind of playing with some options in my head. So that has taken up any free time I've had that could have gone on to this, which does mean I've got 7 to 10 days before my month of September is over and done, and it's time for this project to be gone. So I will need to kind of get a hustle on that. However, I do have today and tomorrow completely off from work, and I could spend a large portion of that working on this, but today I'm going to go have some fun and go to an apple festival, and I'm not going to be doing much at all. That should, you know, all of my should be stuff. This apple festival came up very last minute. I found out about it last night on my way home, and I have the opportunity to go today, and I'm going to take that opportunity. I'm somebody who really likes festivals, and I haven't had enough playtime this last 6 months, and so it's time to go play. I will talk to you guys later. I think my next video is probably going to be this month's Debts and Desires video to see where we're at with that. Then I will have my week 4 spending check-in and my paycheck number 2 closeout, and then my month closeout. So I do have a lot of other videos left to come, but that's where we're at for today. I want to thank you so much for popping in to visit with me today, and I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now. Wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, please have some fun. Bye-bye now.